Welcome, Class 10 students. So glad you're joining us for this explainer. Today, we're going to break down one of the most fascinating and, honestly, most crucial things your body does every single second: breathing. You probably don't even think about it, right? But you actually breathe in and out about 20,000 times a day. Have you ever wondered what actually happens when you take a breath? Like, how does the oxygen from the air around us actually get into our blood? Well, we're going to take a journey right through the human respiratory system. We'll keep it super simple, so it's not only going to help you ace your exams, but you'll also just get a really cool appreciation for how amazing your body is.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the lungs themselves. Then, we'll trace the actual journey of air through your body. Third, we'll cover gas exchange. Fourth, we'll look at the mechanics of breathing, which is kind of like a balloon. And finally, we'll talk about how to actually protect your lungs. Let's get into it.
Part 1. The lungs, your respiratory system. Let's start with the macro view.
So the biggest thing to remember here is that your lungs are a pair of spongy organs sitting right inside your chest. They are literally the headquarters of your respiratory system. Now, I really want you to focus on that word, spongy. A lot of times, we picture lungs as just two hollow balloons filled with air, but biologically, they're actually dense, complex, and a lot like a sponge. This spongy texture is absolutely crucial because it creates a massive surface area crammed into the tiny space of your ribcage. And as you'll see, it's this exact structure that makes everything else possible.
Moving on to part 2, the journey of air in the body. Time for the micro journey.
Okay, so when you take a big breath in, that air doesn't just instantly teleport into your blood. It goes on a very specific trip. First, it travels down your windpipe. Then, that path splits into two main bronchial tubes, one for your left lung and one for your right. But it doesn't stop there. Once inside the lungs, these tubes branch out into thousands of incredibly thin tubes called bronchioles. Think of it like an upside-down tree. The windpipe is the trunk, the bronchial tubes are the thick branches, and the bronchioles are all those tiny little twigs spreading out everywhere. And right at the very end of those twigs, the air finally reaches the alveoli.
Now for your Class 10 exams, definitely make sure you memorize this one. Alveoli are bunches of tiny round air sacs located at the very end of those bronchioles. So if the bronchioles are the twigs of our upside-down tree, the alveoli are the leaves. Except instead of flat leaves, they look more like microscopic bunches of grapes. You literally have hundreds of millions of these tiny sacs in your lungs. This is the final destination for the air you just breathed in.
Part 3. Gas exchange. This is the climax of the breath.
To really understand the action happening here, you need to know about capillaries. These are unbelievably tiny blood vessels that run directly through the delicate walls of those air sacs. I mean, they are so thin that your red blood cells actually have to march through them in single file. It's crazy. They form a tight net around every single alveolus. And this, right here, is exactly where the outside world, the air you just breathed in, meets your inside world, your bloodstream.
And this is where the magic happens. The fresh oxygen from the air you inhaled slips right through those super thin walls and directly into the blood inside the capillaries. Your body desperately needs this oxygen for energy. At the exact same time, carbon dioxide, which is just a waste product made by your cells, moves from the blood back into the air sacs. It's the ultimate biological trade-off. You give the blood fresh oxygen, and the blood hands over the carbon dioxide so you can get rid of it. This swap is officially called gas exchange. And guys, this is a massive concept for your syllabus. I mean, it's literally the whole reason we breathe. Without this constant swapping of oxygen and carbon dioxide, our cells just couldn't survive. And the wild part? This is happening millions of times a day across millions of tiny sacs, totally seamlessly.
All right, part 4, acting like a balloon. Let's talk about the physical mechanics of breathing.
Because your airways and those air sacs are highly elastic, you can visualize them acting a lot like small balloons every time you take a breath. Your lungs aren't stiff, rigid boxes. The tissues making up the alveoli are incredibly stretchy, and that stretchiness is super important because it allows the sacs to expand when air rushes in, creating the maximum amount of space possible for that gas exchange we just talked about. You can clearly see how the mechanics work here. When you breathe in, those stretchy balloons inflate. Your diaphragm pulls down, creates a vacuum, and air rushes in to fill millions of alveoli. Then, when you breathe out, they deflate. Since the tissue is elastic, it naturally wants to snap back to its original size, exactly like letting the air out of a party balloon. That squeezing action pushes the carbon dioxide-filled air out of the sacs, back up the bronchioles, up the windpipe, and right out of your nose or mouth.
Part 5. Protecting your lungs. Let's look at the application for your health.
Understanding all this biology is amazing, but we also need to talk about protecting it.
Since a lot of different health conditions can easily damage your delicate alveoli and airways, we have to be proactive. Think about how fragile those tiny air sacs are. If they lose their elasticity or if your airways get inflamed, gas exchange gets blocked. Getting oxygen in and carbon dioxide out becomes a huge struggle. So taking care of your respiratory system isn't just a suggestion, it's a requirement for a long, healthy life.
Here is your ultimate checklist for lung health. First and foremost, quit smoking. Or better yet, never start. And avoid secondhand smoke too. Smoke coats those delicate alveoli in tar and absolutely destroys their elasticity. Next up, maintain a healthy weight and stay physically active. Exercise literally strengthens the muscles that help your lungs expand and contract. Also, you gotta watch out for air pollution. Wear a mask when the air quality is bad, because breathing in fine particles causes serious inflammation. And finally, get regular checkups and stay up to date on vaccines for the flu, pneumonia, and COVID-19. Those illnesses directly attack the lungs and can fill your alveoli with fluid, which completely stops gas exchange. Vaccines are basically your body's best shield against that.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take one last look at that checklist and ask yourself, what are you doing today to protect the millions of tiny balloons keeping you alive? Are you staying active? Are you protecting yourself from pollution? You now know the incredibly complex, microscopic journey that happens with every single breath. You know how hard those tiny alveoli and capillaries are working to power your entire body. So, Class 10 students, take this knowledge from your syllabus and apply it to your real life. Take good care of your respiratory system. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible journey of a breath.